Hello, I'm Cliona Foley and this is Off the Bench, a podcast about women's sport which we hope will entertain sports fans of all ages and genders. Our last episode was actually about the women's AFL, women's footy in Australia, because 18 Irish players who play Gaelic football here have moved down to Australia for the early season for Australian rules, and we wanted to have a look at it in depth. And that's the sort of thing we do here. We don't just look at Irish sport, we look at international sport, but then sometimes we do look at things in more detail here. But generally, whatever's happening in the world in women's sport, it also has a huge relevance for what happens in Ireland, so that's why we like to mix it up a little bit. This season we're also going to try and make every second podcast a panel discussion. We've had them in the past, but we're going to make them a more regular thing, and we're starting off today, and we have two guests in for our first one of the year, and that is Emma Duffy and Aisling O'Reilly. Welcome to Off the Bench.
Thanks a million, Cliona.
I threw them a bit of a curveball because I didn't realise they were live on the telly today, and I just learned what what is it called?
A mua.
I just learned what a mua is. So do you want to tell us what a mua is?
Makeup artist, Cliona.
It's a makeup artist, which I've never
had. For the next day.
Yeah, Emma came in and said, "Oh no, you should have told me. I would have got a mua." And I was like, "What the hell's a mua?"
Stop.
She never goes anywhere with that one, apparently. Emma is a really good sports writer with the 42.ie online here. So if you're watching from abroad, do have a look at her work and all the work on 42.ie. They do brilliant work there. And Aisling is of this parish. She works here in News Talk and is also involved in a podcast herself in Gaelic Games, so she is really interested in the whole area of women's sport as well. So we've lots to chat about, and I suppose one of the things that caught my eye was the fact that a major international soccer player in Ireland has come out of retirement, Áine O'Gorman. And Emma, maybe you would talk about why this is of relevance and importance.
I suppose obviously a huge story during the week. There was kind of no word about it until the squad announcement the other day. I actually was out there in Abbottstown myself, and it was just mentioned a minute before the tweet went up.
Literally?
Yeah,
wow.
Pretty much. And the tweet went up, and then because we were just trying to guess who would this big name coming back, who would it be? Anyway, it turns out it was Áine O'Gorman, and I suppose it all kind of makes perfect sense. She's only 30.
Yeah.
100 caps to her name. There was always nearly a little bit of a feeling that she could come back. Mm-hmm. She did a podcast actually, with the 42 with Paul Dollery in there, and she kind of didn't rule out an international return. That was only a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was always nearly a feeling that she might come back. I suppose at the time, work commitments was a big thing. She's a PT down in Wicklow, and I think it kind of nearly came to a natural end that, okay, done with this major tournament cycle. She stepped
they were
away.
Trying to qualify.
Exactly. Karen Duggan stepped away. It kind of felt like a natural thing for her, I'd say.
I've seen their club is Peamount. I've seen them playing for Peamount twice last year, and I mean the way they play, the two of them could still be playing international.
Absolutely.
And every time I saw her, I remember thinking, God, why isn't Áine O'Gorman still playing for Ireland?
She's unbelievable. She really is.
That's one of the things. Is first of all, it's great to see her back. Secondly, she's back in a slightly different role. She's been picked as a defender, which I think is really interesting.
So obviously Megan Campbell, we saw the news yesterday that it's another really bad long-term injury.
The Irish defenders, that's terrible.
Horrendous, because she had a really long stint with her ACL and ankle injury before, and I remember speaking to her, I think it was last summer, the head of the Women's World Cup, and she was saying that she was at a point where she was thinking, the last injury, is this really for me? Is football for me? Like, if this keeps happening to me, and here we go again.
Yeah,
but she put up a really good message on Instagram.
Yeah, I saw it actually. It's only just out. But the one thing that struck me as well, Aisling, was with Áine O'Gorman, and it struck me a little bit with GA players as well, is do women retire too early?
Yeah, I suppose she always talked about she sacrificed a lot for the pitch. So I think it came down to that for her. She just said, I need to concentrate on other things. And I suppose you'd wonder, why does it get to that stage? Yeah. When for men it's maybe the goal is to keep playing as long as possible.
Yeah.
But sometimes for women you're constantly looking at, do I need to have another work commitment to keep myself going here?
So is that because they're not professional, do you think? Is because they're not living that same professional lifestyle? It's harder for them?
I think it comes down to that, yeah. She just wanted to have other things going on in her life, as well as she could play her club, but she had to do her PT and all that as well along with it. And I think it just comes down to that. And yeah, like it's great to see her back in now at 30, and like it'll be exciting to see if she does feature, you know.
Yeah.
So obviously we don't know yet if she will or she won't, but she always said she'd never rule it out. So
I can't
see her back in.
You can't see Vera Pauw, who's the new international manager, who's obviously persuaded her to come back. She saw her playing in the cup final last year. She asked her back. She actually went after her. It's hard to see her bringing her back and not using her, as you say. They've lost injury, but it also raised that other question for me, Emma, is that notion, because I think we see it in GAA. I would say that, do you remember the Irish, the Cork women's team that won 10 All-Irelands in 11 years? I think a load of those retired too early, and Breach Corkery came back out of retirement, if you remember. But I would say Geraldine O'Flynn, there were players like that I could have watched for years, and I think they could have gone on.
Yeah, that's
do you
the
think
thing.
that?
I definitely 100%, but I do think nearly it's like something ingrained in the psyche or something. It's just like a cultural thing that women, they get to a certain age, women want to have kids,
families,
exactly,
they
want to progress their careers, that kind of thing. So you know, and you see that. I suppose we were speaking about Bevan Parsons before we came on air, and she's kind of stepped away from the Ireland squad for the Six Nations because of her leaving cert.
The very opposite. The
polar opposite, exactly. But I suppose there is that kind of thing that there is more to life than sport, and you know, girls are thinking about life after sport already.
But I think that's because for most of them, they don't have an opportunity to play sport professionally.
Of course.
Yeah, if they did have that option, I think we would see a lot of the girls staying on.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have that in your head, like, oh, I want to have a family, or I want to have a career, I want to have money to my name, I want to be able to do X, Y and Z, and it's just the main problem.
And having children is definitely an issue, because I don't know about you, but like I would have spoken to a few inter-county players in recent years, and they would be retiring, and I'd say why, and they would on the QT say to you, I want to have kids, and I don't want to leave it too late.
Exactly.
And usually you meet them and they get pregnant very quickly after. So a few of them have got pregnant very quickly after. So it is a factor. There's a physiological reason there.
Like it's turning into kind of nearly a more and more young person's game as well, because you see, like even inter-county teams, so many of the girls are, you know, just out of school, still in school, just out of school, in college, and then it comes to a point where a lot of girls go, oh God, right, I want to travel, or I want to, you know, develop my career, and I can't play football while I'm doing that, and that kind of thing. So I think they're kind of comes a point like where they come to a crossroads.
It's different for girls than boys in this area. It does definitely seem to be. I was really interested in Kim Clijsters coming back recently. So I mean, at one stage she was such a brilliant tennis player. She was the world number one in doubles and singles at one point, and you know, won multiple Grand Slams. But she came out of retirement twice, in fact. So she came out first when after she had her first child, and then she went out. But even when she came back recently, and she came back after 7 years, and it was really interesting because she said that when she was away, she really wanted to play. And her quote was, but I kept thinking, my life is here now with my 3 kids. I just thought, would a male player be thinking like that? And I don't think that they would. So she's come out of retirement. Her children are 11 and 5 and 2, and she thought because her 2-year-old was now going to play school and creche that she could manage it. So it's interesting that she came back, I think, at 36 to come back to play, and we haven't seen it too often even in women's Gaelic, but it is Breach Corkery is the one that sticks out.
Lovely photo.
With the
tiger in the cup.
That was a brilliant photo of her little baby in the cup. But it does interest me, because definitely, so there might be biological reasons, but the fact that they can't make a living out of it as well. And I noticed Anya O'Gorman saying that, she was saying, I gave 12 years to it, and you know, that means she started very young. She was about 28, I think, when she stopped it international football.
And she had 100 caps as well.
100 caps as well.
What
so that just
shows,
like, So brilliant to see her back. But it does bring us, the Bavian Parsons one is really interesting. So for anybody who doesn't know, Bavian Parsons is a brilliant young Irish rugby winger. It's still a teenager, still in school. 2 years ago I saw her, November 2018. She came off the bench in Donnybrook, Ireland. We're playing USA in a friendly, and she came off, and just the whole place came alive. She's just a fantastic player.
She's lightning.
She is lightning, but also she has all the moves as well. She's just a really talented. She's
such an athlete. Like, isn't she? Build of her, you'd never think she's 18 years old. Yeah, she is. She's fantastic. So she's able for physically able for senior rugby. But she, as you were saying, she has recently pulled. So she played the first two. Was it the first two?
The first two Six Nation games, and scored 2 unbelievable tries. Ran the length of the pitch in one and danced around 3 or 4 players in the other.
The second one was amazing.
Against Scotland and Wales.
It was fantastic.
But then it came out after the game, the IRFU released a statement that she was to sit out for the rest of Six Nations because of her leaving cert. And Adam Griggs had sat down with her and her family. She wants to do medicine in college, I think, so that's another big thing. Obviously, the hours of study she has to put in there. So a huge loss for Ireland, absolutely, because she's insanely talented. But then again, you have to look at the bright side, I suppose. On Sunday, they did as well as they could against a fully professional, all-conquering England team.
I know, and that's an interesting one as well. I was curious, when I looked at her, I remember thinking, again, you wouldn't get a 16-year-old boy making his debut for Ireland because for many reasons. It's not a professional game. Physically, the differences, I suppose, would be. But as you were saying, physically at her age, she is able for the senior game.
Well able. Yeah. Sure, she made her debut 16, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So she's had that 2 years now, and just physically she's in amazing shape. And I spoke to her actually in Energy Park there after the Scotland game.
After the length of the pitch try.
After the length of the
intercept try.
One end of the pitch to the other. And she was just buzzing. And I was like, is this your dream? I was like, this always been the dream. She's like, this has been my dream, like always. I've always wanted to play for Ireland. And she was like, I was like, run through your week with me. Like, I was like, what do you do? Like, how is it going to school? And she was like, like I'd have to get up at 6 or whatever, go to the gym, school, then we go to the gym after school again. And this is probably a lot of her own stuff she does, and then a weekend then she's training or she's playing for Ireland.
It's probably exceptional for a girl. It probably isn't exceptional for a boy. If you're playing schools rugby, that's probably what they're doing. But it is exceptional for a girl. The thing I wonder about though is, like, should a 16-year-old be playing senior international? Should there not be under 20 internationals that they should be playing in?
Yeah,
that's my thinking on it, Aisling.
Yeah, there isn't that for them. So if there was, it might be different. I always say, like, I love to see someone young coming on and playing at that level, but if they did have the 20s or whatever, they could play, it'd be a lot better for their development, for school.
It'd be easier for them to make. It'd be easier for the ones who weren't so super talented to make the transition, wouldn't it? And it's what we're missing at the moment.
Yeah.
That we don't have that level for girls, and that's where the IRFU need to develop. They need to develop under 20 squads, and I know that's an argument being made by a lot of senior players as well. And there was Alison Miller had a good article before our Six Nations game there against England.
Yes.
Did you read that?
It was really interesting, really good piece in the Independent. I think it was last Friday, one of the days before the England game anyway, and she kind of just argued the point that it definitely is time to think about the Ireland women's team. The 15's going professional. And I would agree with pretty much everything Alison said.
And what was her argument?
She kind of just said that as they're not professional, they're trying to balance full-time jobs with training, with international rugby. And I suppose you can't expect them to compete with fully professional teams when they're doing that. Like, recovery is huge in sport.
Massive.
They're not getting a chance to even sleep their 8 hours, that kind of thing. They're straight into work the next morning after a game at God knows what hour, into hospitals, into clinics, this,
nurses,
that and the other.
doctors, teachers, solicitors, whatever else they're doing, students as well. It was interesting. Last year they got a terrible transfer by England. I think it was 51-7. This year it wasn't so bad, 27-0. But Alison Miller's point was, they only heard him to. But her point was, even before the game, she wrote a piece saying they're competing as amateurs against professionals. And if we want to make this leap, if we don't want this to be the scenario, and if we want to start actually having a chance against England and France, you've got to try and look at it. And the Sevens game here is semi-pro professional. There is money for it,
so it is doable.
So her argument is it's doable. She had a great line. She said, the cynic in me isn't hopeful, but Sevens have contracts, so it is doable. That's exactly the line she
had. Another
used.
great line. I don't know it exactly, but she kind of just said that, in reality, they're women with full-time jobs and they just play for their country at the weekend. And when you put it down as simple as that, that's what it is.
Absolutely what it is.
And you see the score as well, like 27-0. They were without Baving, and then Lindsay Peake got injured earlier on.
We send her our best wishes.
Of course,
Lindsay,
Sene
as well,
and they're huge voices, huge experience. And when you lose a player like that in your team, things do fall a bit. So I imagine they had a fully fit team with Bevan. Like,
do you know what I noticed? Do you know what I noticed? The people, we have Irish players playing in England, and they're playing very well at the moment. So I think it's really interesting. Cliona Maloney, Anna Capeless, they are playing really well at the moment, and they're in England playing in a sort of a semi-pro for them. You can see that they're playing at a level and training at a level that it's making a difference.
Exactly, and
so
their standards are upped. And,
definitely.
Nothing less than that. But I think a big thing as well, obviously, is across the board in any sport, success brings momentum and brings exposure, and that's what, the younger generation, they want to look at girls going out and winning and doing well, and then it's just like.
So the international result you were saying matters, Emma?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Like, obviously, you saw they got 2 opening wins, and that was huge. Everyone got behind the team. Everyone knew what to expect with England. But if the Ireland women's team were fully professional, could absolutely go and put it up to England, say beat England, then it's 3 from 3. And, and what does that do for the younger kids?
Exactly, and what does it do for their own confidence as well? Alison had another great line, and this was her point as well. It's what you're saying as well. She was saying, I've had a few coaches, she said, who forgot that we were amateurs and ran us into the red. And I thought that was a really interesting line. So in other words, sometimes even the people coaching them forget that they're not the same as the men. They have jobs. They they're coming in at weekends for camps and stuff, but like they're not getting the recovery, and they're juggling with other things.
Like, that's the thing. They're giving it exactly what the men give and more. And what the women are doing is absolutely phenomenal. Like, if you were speaking there about Bevan's week, if you think of school, gym, all that.
I don't know how she had a minute. Like.
Absolutely, they're giving it the same and more, if not more.
So the question I always think is, if it needs to go pro, what needs to happen? Where does the money come from? And everyone always says, well, women aren't making the money, you're not drawing in the big crowd. Our argument here on Off the Bench sometimes is that they need help maybe to start to create a momentum to bring in those crowds, and also to bring in sponsors. It's really interesting. I don't know whether people know it, but like the Women's Six Nation is not sponsored by Guinness. The men, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2019 to 2024, Guinness have sponsored the Six Nation. 50 million they're putting into the men's game. They're partnering with the Women's Six Nation, but they're not actually sponsoring it, and that's really interesting. So if sponsors aren't willing to put the money into it, how can you grow the game? Because you've both seen with women's Gaelic football how a big sponsorship, how promotion on TV and through all kinds of projects, that has helped the game to develop. So like, there isn't the money there. And I was looking at, came across something in English football, in women's football in England, and I thought it was really interesting. The comparison between, this is a comparison between the FA Cup in England and the Women's FA Cup, right? So the winners of the men's FA Cup in England get 3.6 million. That's the winners get 3.6 million. And the winners of the women's FA Cup in England get 25,000, right? But if you even go right back down to the extra preliminary round, the very, very start of both competitions, if you win a game in the men's, you get 2,250. If you win a game in the women's, you get 300 quid, right? But as it goes, as the competition increases, the percentage that women get of the that would be equal in men's, it actually gets smaller. So in those preliminary rounds, for example, in the first round qualifying in the FA Cup men's, you get 4,500 for winning the game. In the women's, you get 400 quid, which is 9% of the men's, right? But by the time you get up to the semi-finals and the final, the winning semi-finalists get 1.8 million, and the women's winning semi-finals get $5,000. And so it gets down to like 1%.
0%.
It just goes the opposite way. Isn't that really interesting?
Madness, isn't it?
Yeah, but it just shows how much money goes into the top end of men's sport and how far women are behind it.
It's so interesting to look at it when the figures are there like that.
Seeing it black and white, I got a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I didn't completely understand the complete disparity myself until you kind of look at it like that. Like, I knew obviously it was massive, but geez, 1%.
We have women playing, like we have women now playing soccer in England, and they're playing in the Women's Super League, right? Now, Women's Super League only started in 2011, right? 2019 was actually the first year that the winners, that teams in the Women's Super League got prize money. They never got prize money even in those first years. And now the winners, I think, the winners of it get there's a prize pot of about 500,000 quid, that's all, and the men's is like zillions and millions. And even the Women's World Cup, I was just looking at it, the prize fund for the Women's World Cup last year was 30 million, and the men's prize fund for the World Cup in 2022 is 440 million. That's the difference. So so there's a long way to go. I know there's always this argument about, well, you're not bringing in big crowds, but it's the difficulty in trying to get crowds, or like the Six Nations is a classic example of it. They're selling out where they're playing now. They're creating crowds. Yeah. But yet there isn't a major sponsor there. There's no title sponsor. Like Guinness are involved, but they're not a title sponsor. Women's Six Nations has no title sponsor. Yeah. Isn't that mad?
Yeah, I think it's just maybe how it's marketed and promoted, maybe. Do you know, if we could look at that. And I know with the 2020 campaign, of course, that's what it's doing. You can see the visibility. It's so much more visible, you know. We're hearing about the games. We're seeing a lot more, you know, it's covered more. So I think if the promotion and the marketing of it all was looked at a bit more, to pushing it out there more, then maybe a sponsor would say to themselves, okay, I'll jump on here because my brand is being seen. Yeah. Do you know?
Well, I think you need to. I think sponsors need to have the courage of their own convictions. Like, of course, we're going to see now. The women's soccer have 2 qualifiers coming up, haven't they, in March? Yes. So
Greece next Thursday.
Greece is on March the 5th. And Montenegro is March 11th. So Anya Gorman is technically back in the squad for those 2 big important games, because Ireland are unbeaten in their qualifying so far. But like, it was a sellout for the last one, and technically it was a sellout. I mean, it wasn't full because they're season ticket holders in Tallaght. But the rumour is probably that the next home game, March 5, will be a sellout. So if people are looking at that and they're going, well, if they're filling the place, well, then why wouldn't a sponsor get behind it? And they have, in fairness, in the FAI, with 3 have come in there and they've done well. But somebody has to bite the bullet at some point. You have to trust it. It's a bit like Lidl. Yeah, you know, they created a lot of the interest. And the other thing that interests me, Emma, is when sponsors put money into women's sport, half of it or some of it goes to developing the game. Yeah, I know. And that's happened in the English Super League. Like, there's something like, I think there's a 10 million deal with the Super League, Women's Super League, Barclays. But it's a 3-year deal for 10 million. But most of that is going into the development. Schools programmes, club programmes, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And like, I understand, obviously, grassroots has to be looked after at schools, and that's where it all comes from, I suppose. But if you're not getting it at the top, you know, what hope do we have at the bottom? But like, you know, kind of going back to the argument about going fully professional, but if women's sport is to go professional, fully professional, it has to be funded properly.
The money has to come from somewhere. And my argument is, why is it not also coming from the men's side of the game? If they're really serious about building their women's side of their club or the women's side of their sport,
and this whole going under the one umbrella thing,
well, then maybe you have to sacrifice a little bit of your money and try to build it up. Because the one thing that money that sponsors aren't going to be funding in men's sport is they're not really funding the development end of it. They go straight in to the top. All the money goes into the top. And TV money. We have this argument, I know your thing as well, about charging more, even maybe internationals. Why aren't we charging more for women's internationals? We have to get money from somewhere, you know, to make it professional. It is interesting. We're into the GAA season, totally amateur, even more amateur, because they play all year round. You know, the women's rugby season is shorter. So both of you are covering it and looking at it all the time. Has anything jumped out at you, Aisling, even from the start of the season? We're in the early weeks of them already.
Yeah, early weeks. Well, Cork are going well with 4 from 4, so that's good. You'll be seeing them push on now, I'd say.
Are we ladies football or Camogie here?
We're ladies football, yeah. And then I suppose the more shocking one is probably McBones Dublin. So yeah, normally would see them always
3 in a row All-Ireland champions.
Yeah, so maybe they're feeling the missing Sinead McGoldrick and
Eve McAvoy. A few players, Is he using it to experiment as well at this time of year?
I think so, yeah. He will probably just look at it. Maybe it is the league and he's, you know, trying out a few things. But at the same time, it is quite shocking.
I think it was a huge win for Galway, I suppose, to get one up on them.
Massive win.
But like, if you look at Dublin, they're without Lauren McGee. She's injured. Massive engine in the team. Alwyn Carey as well. I think she's taken the year out, and she's, you know, everything goes through Alwyn. Then obviously Lindsay Davey has just come back. Sinead Ahern, Noel Healy. He's waiting on big names.
That's right. These big names. He's 2 in Australia. There is that
absolutely. So there is that. But then Cork are the same. They're waiting on the O'Sullivan sisters. But the depth of their panel is unbelievable.
Right.
I did a piece a few weeks ago, just kind of looking at who'd come back and, you know, who was still there, and Roisin Phelan's back, Marie Ambrose is fully fit, like they're flying it. And I suppose the fact with the ladies football, it's the same with the Camogie. I think it's a straight final this year. There's no semi-finals.
There's no semi-finals, which I think is really strange. I can't understand why there hasn't been more about this. There's no semi-finals in either of them.
Absolutely, and like that's thing.
Mad.
So Cork in the ladies football, I suppose Cork pretty much have their final spot secured. And then it's looking at the minute it's going to be Galway. That's what it's looking like.
It looks like it. But that has the potential to create a load of dead rubbers later on. People are not interested in whether they play together.
But like I remember even I was speaking about this with someone yesterday, and you know the way the last few years they've done the semi-final double headers with the Division 1 and Division 2 team.
And it's been really good. It's been really, there's some of the best games. Cork Dublin last year went to extra time.
Play extra time, the whole lot.
Is there any reason, Aisling, why both of them are going to straight finals?
I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe less games for the girls. I don't know what the main reason is.
Any sense
to
me.
I don't know. I don't really know the reason. The LGFA kind of just came out and said, no, it's just going to be a straight final, and it doesn't seem to be a calendar issue anyway, because there's such a gap between the league and the provincials anyway. And look, if you look at the likes of Dublin, if they're leaving, you know, if they don't get into a league final,
have a massive
they're
gap
going
because
how
they've no
long
senior
without a game,
championship.
They've no Leinster championship.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the Camogie is the same. I just couldn't understand that. Like, again, if we're going to have leagues, semi-finals are very often brilliant games, particularly league semi-finals, because they're not, people don't get quite as nervous about them as championships, I think, and they're always there's always something in
and
them.
it's nice weather and everything.
It's
nearly summer football basically. So,
and what about the Camogie then?
Yeah, it's the same. So it's just going to be straight finals. I don't know, I think probably the shocking result that I've heard so far anyway.
Which one?
Kilkenny were beat by Clare.
Clare beat Kilkenny, which is an amazing result.
Amazing result. It's great to see it. I do feel for Kilkenny though, just after the few years the All-Ireland stuff, and it's early on in the year, obviously.
They're without a lot of players at the moment.
Without a lot of players, and obviously the management is
they've slightly changed the management as well.
A huge win for Clare.
Huge win. It's great for the game. I love seeing that early on. And obviously Kilkenny are without Anne Downey now this year, so that's a
new management. Well, and in fact, I mean, there's not that changed because he was involved last year. The one thing that I think Clare have lost players this year as well. So like that's a huge result for them as well. Do you know?
And by all accounts, anything I've seen from the game, it feels like they did really deserve it. You know, they saw it out.
They absolutely
Kilkenny, I think, had their chance come the end, but Clare held on. So, you know, that's brilliant for the game. And then, obviously, then you look at Cork, they're kind of waiting on a few girls to come back too. But then Aisling Thompson's back in the fold this year.
Huge factor.
Massive.
Huge
even
factor.
for the game as a whole. You know, it's
she was missed physically. Her presence last year was hugely
that semi-final, she would have bossed it. Like.
Exactly. And I think she's a big factor. People weren't saying it at the time. But she stepped away last year, and I think definitely you could see there was a problem with them, just in terms of she is physically drives that midfield there for them. The new rules have come in. Again, one of the problems you have is we're trying to watch it on streaming. We don't have a lot of live coverage of women's team sport at the moment, but something has struck you already, Aisling.
Yeah, like
from your own point of view. Even.
Yeah, I suppose we went back training there about 2 weeks ago.
You should tell us where you played.
So it's Ratoath, County Meath. So we went out back training, and a lot of the girls play county. I think we have about 5 county girls altogether. And
in Camogie.
In Camogie, yeah. And it was funny because we just went straight into a game. We were just easing back in. We've been doing strength and conditioning for the last few weeks, and it was gas because all the county girls came back and were, going in hard, delighted with the new rules and not dropping the hurley, not hand passing the goal. And sure, they were shouting at our players, then the rest of the club girls saying, what are you doing? You can't hand pass the goal. And we were all over the place.
Everything was all over the shop.
Hold on a minute. And then some of the younger girls thought that the rules were in for the club too.
This is
so
totally
they were shouting at them. And
so
we were like,
if anybody's watching and doesn't understand what's going on here, Camogie has introduced a load of new rules this year at the players' request, really. And they canvas long and wide. We have, if you go into our archive, you'll find we have a programme, actually, one full episode on the new rules, why they've come in, including the people who brought them in, came in, and we had a great discussion on them, why they've been brought in. But they're only been experimented in the Women's National League, right? So it doesn't, and then they'll go for the summer, so they'll go again for the championship technically, because they have to come in at the next Congress. They don't apply to club, but I've seen loads of people online saying, do they apply to club? And can we use it with club? So you actually physically have seen what happens.
It was a mess. Like, we didn't know what was going on. And then obviously you have the girls that are playing the county, and they were like, hold on a minute, we've been doing weeks of these new rules. How am I meant to go out in the club game next
It's
week?
very
and
hard
not
to
do these
adapt.
rules.
Yeah.
And you know, it really must affect them even with county then. They're coming back to our training and doing our rules.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really
it was-
interesting
yeah.
too. Obviously, the fact they're only in for the league, like, will teams go full hog and you
Yeah.
know, go by the book for the league, or will they just, you know, play like the way they've always
Play the way
known?
they've always,
You're
because
looking
when
at
it comes to
championship,
championship, they're going to have to go back to the other way played. It happens in the men. This happens in the men's game as well, but I don't think it affects club as much because I think intercounty men don't play for their clubs that much. And the reality is
They're
they play
back
for their
to
clubs
yeah.
very
when
little,
county's
whereas
over, like.
women go back into their clubs a lot.
They're in and out between both. Like.
Yeah.
But they brought the mark on that into the club setup
Yeah.
for the men.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
so you know they're sort of
It's going to be
practicing.
interesting. It is interesting. So you have physical proof on your body.
Well, I'm loving the new rules. I love
Are
going
you?
in hard for the ball.
You just want to get stuck in there, Aisling. That's hilarious.
Well, hopefully they bring them in for the club. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah. We had. I mean, if people are interested in this, it is worthwhile going back into our archive. The one, I think it was one of the last ones we did before Christmas on the new camogie rules, because we had a really interesting discussion, because some really experienced camogie players don't like the new increased contact rule because of the club thing, because they say if they bring it in, you're going to have young girls who play senior club and physically they could get, you know, badly hit or a lot, you know, get hit a lot harder than they're getting hit at the moment. So there is a big debate going on about it, but that's great. I think innovation debate, let's try it, why not? Let's see where it takes
But like the physicality one's a weird one, because, like, you know, it comes down to the referee's opinion. Like, how do you measure
the
it?
contact rule is I'm trying to remember the phrase.
contact one, yeah.
What is it? It's something like
It's basically minimal
contact, or reasonable contact or
Something
something.
like
It's up
that.
to the referee to interpret it.
It's to their discretion,
It'll be
basically.
funny
That's
to see
it.
how that works as well.
Aisling Thompson won't mind me saying. I think it'll be interesting to see her interpretation of minimal contact. But loads of players are going to be interested with
Absolutely.
it. And we know at senior intercounty level, of course, you push it right to the edge. That's what you're there. That's why.
you're
That's
not
what makes you an
training all year.
intercounty player.
Anyone
Yeah.
I've spoken to, any of the county girls I've spoken to, are buzzing about them. Like,
Yeah.
they're
They
buzzing
do.
about that physicality one anyway.
I was talking to Katie Power as well, and she was in Kilkenny, and she was saying that she's out injured at the moment, but she was saying all the players loved them more increased, because she said physically they're training for this.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And they
all
want the
time.
game to be exactly like hurling.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Yeah. Then don't even get us started that debate. Women's hurling, as I call it, and then people ring in and give out to me. And we have people down. Obviously, we've done also, as I said, our last episode was on the women's AFL in Australia, and you keep an eye on that all the time, Emma, and are covering it as well. But it's interesting. We have players who would be from less well-known counties here who are doing well down there already.
That's it, yeah. And I suppose one thing that we're seeing this year is a lot of the girls who have been down there last season as well, they're really coming through this year. Aisling McCarthy has been
from
phenomenal
Tipperary.
from
She's playing
Tipperary.
really well, yeah.
Ailish Considine again has been brilliant. She's been kicking goals.
Who won an AFLW last year. Yeah.
Sarah Rowe was brilliant at the weekend with Collingwood. Aisling Sheridan.
Cora Staunton is back and scored her first. Did she score? Yeah, she seemed to be playing well because she had that awful leg
Her
break.
first goal, I think it was 4 places she broke the leg in, possibly more.
Yeah, it was a horrendous leg break.
Yeah, insane recovery from that.
So you, on the 42, you're giving a kind of you're giving a roundup every weekend.
Yeah,
of
so
it
we
as
try
well.
to do anyway, kind of just give a roundup
much as
on
you can.
the Sunday or the Monday, just of everything that happened over the
Great.
weekend.
Because I think people will be interested in seeing how they get on down there. Like we knew the people, there was 5 of them last year, but there's such a
there's
big
18
amount of
this
them.
year, and
Yeah.
well, 17, I suppose. Anya Tighe from Leitrim
That's injured.
did her cruciate
Yeah,
again,
that's
so
right.
unfortunately
Very
she's
sad.
out.
Yeah.
But yeah, the others are flying the flag anyway so far. There's been some injuries. Sinead Goldrick actually got concussed
She
at the
did,
weekend.
I noticed that
and
last weekend.
Tara Fitzpatrick from Down as well. She got a terrible hit to the head, a concussion as well. Yeah. She took a heavy one. But I'd say she'll be back in the mix now for the next round. So yeah, it's interesting to keep an eye. The one thing though, it's over, and like, you know, you have to stay up to watch the game.
do have to
But
stay
there's
up to watch
plenty of
the
clips up on Twitter and
There
everything.
is, and if you go into the clubs as well, they nearly always have some kind of highlight reels as well of their own games. So they're all worth interesting. Before we finish up, we always like to do a thing called Hero of the Bench. We like to just pick out somebody that for us has done something exceptional or heroic in the last few weeks. So I'm going to ask you for your nominees. I'll start with you, Aisling.
Yep, so I picked the MMA fighter Leah McCourt.
Tell us about her.
Yeah, so basically she made history last weekend by becoming the first female MMA fighter to headline Bellator. So she also won.
Dublin?
Yeah, in Dublin. So she just always speaks that she's a single mom from a council flat in Belfast, and just to headline an event like that and to win it.
Yeah.
She also, coming up to the fight, she was obviously had to get her weigh in, and she was just over as it was coming to the official weigh in. So she just was telling a story about basically, it was all drastic measures now. She was like, in the bath, then they had to wrap her, then she was on the treadmill, trying anything they could.
Boxers, jockeys and MMA fighters, anybody
go
who's
through all
weight.
these in the saunas, So nothing seemed to be working for her. Just her body just stopped, like, losing the water, and she just didn't know what to do, and it was coming really close to like a few hours before it, and they just said she got on the scales and I think it was 0.8 she was over, and she said, right, just cut my hair off.
Oh my
No
God,
way.
I didn't know this.
No way. My God.
She had hair extensions, and she said she just ran into the bathroom and all her team started cutting her hair off. She said she was running back onto the treadmill, running back out, and they were like cutting her hair. She had like 5 minutes to go.
Oh my God, that's
and
amazing.
she got on the scales
dedication.
and she made, I think it was 146 they have to be. So I just thought, like, wow. She was in the ring then with her daughter at the end, and I just thought it was an amazing story. Oh,
that is incredible. Fair dues to her. That is unbelievable. Talk about going to extreme measures. There was no mua there, right? Was there? Wow. Oh, that was great. Good story. Well done. Emma, what about you?
I don't think my hero at the bench now had to go to as extreme measures as that. Well, I hope she didn't. I'm going to go with Ireland and Brighton striker Rihanna Jarrett.
Yeah.
Scored...
sat right there with us as well. Yes. Yeah, she was in here for our World Cup preview last year, Rihanna.
Absolutely, yeah. So
great analyst as well as a great player.
Unbelievable, yeah. So Rihanna has obviously made the move to Women's Super League outfit Brighton and Hove Albion after just being unbelievable for Wexford all around over the past while. Yeah. I suppose her rise has been absolutely phenomenal. She suffered 3 cruciate injuries.
3 cruciates.
By the age of 21.
Gone through her hell.
She's had a few other niggly ones too, but what she's done over the past few months even has been incredible. She's got herself into serious shape while working full time in Wexford.
So she moved to Brighton and got her first. She just got her first goal?
She scored 2 goals on her debut last night.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is unbelievable.
Fantastic.
And she's been kind of really established herself as a big player on the Ireland women's team.
Oh, she's been brilliant for the Irish women's team.
Her first goal against, I think it was against Ukraine, and player of the match performance in Tallaght. So I'd say she'll be one to watch now. These two qualifiers coming up.
Particularly because she has come back from the 3 cruciates, and we know, as we say, that they're more common in female athletes. And we had her here, and she told us the great story of Megan Rapinoe actually sending her an email when somebody told Megan Rapinoe about her and the fact that she'd had the 3 cruciates as well. And this is before Megan Rapinoe took off last summer. But Megan Rapinoe actually emailed her, and she has an email from her at the time. It was really lovely, very cool story. She
had a fairly impressive debut now over there.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, they're all very different. My hero at the bench the last few weeks is Emer Considine, who has adapted to playing fullback for the Irish rugby team this year. Her sister plays full-time AFL at the moment, but the story that she revealed, and it's part of a new Irish Rugby Tackle Your Feelings campaign, which I never knew, and I'd interviewed her many times, and I think lots of people had, was that when she was 14 and Ailish was 13, they went for a walk on the beach in Lahinch with their father, and he had a heart attack and died, and she'd never ever revealed that to anybody before. And so she was talking about how she didn't want to be defined by it, and she said she didn't want people to think that was why she got into sport. But so she'd never talked about it before, but she talked so honestly about it. It was
she was brilliant.
Wasn't she amazing?
And she kind of spoke about, I suppose, how it nearly hit her harder later in life, and burnout kind of was a big issue for her. It was a few years back. So I thought that was interesting too.
And she's a player who took up rugby very late. I mean, they were both dual players for Clare, brilliant dual players for Clare. So she's really adapted very quickly to her sport.
I think because she went into the 7 setup, and then I think she played her first 6 Nations game. She'd only played like 2 games of 15s rugby beforehand or something, or 3 games into pros.
She has adapted very quickly to 15s, and her reading of GAA GAA, even being a sweeper in Camogie, she says it helps her a bit. But I just thought it was incredibly brave.
Absolutely.
It was also incredible not to have ever talked about it before, and now to be so honest about it. And she's a teacher, and they've started this program in schools as well, particularly for second level, kind of for senior cycle pupils. She said there's a lot about wellness and minding yourself in junior cycle in schools, but not so much at senior level where it's really important. And so this Tackle Your Feelings is a new project, and even if you're a teacher out there or a coach, you might want to look at it and see what the resource materials are, and to see can you use it with your teams.
There's an app actually. I downloaded
There's an app. The app
really
is amazing. The app, it's very interactive. She said very easy to use as well. Yeah. So well done to her for her honesty and as I said, for driving that sort of side of it as well. So 3 really worthy heroes of the bench this week, and so different.
Yeah.
Which is what's so amazing about women's sport. One is that there's so many human stories in it because they're trying to combine so much of their lives with elite sport, and also because we don't know the stories. That's an amazing story. I think we'll have to give it to.
I think so.
I think we'll have to give it to Leah's again. She's Belfast, isn't she?
She's Belfast, yeah. So yes,
I've never seen her fight. She's an incredible athlete. She looks
incredible.
like such an athlete.
Yeah, she just talks about growing up, and it was just her and her sisters, and her dad just always wanted them to be able to stick up for themselves, and so he got them into, I think it was judo they started with, and she was the only one that pushed on and really, got into the MMA.
And I'm sure she's all over social. I know I've seen this.
She's everywhere now.
The MMA stuff wasn't social.
We'll have to get that story out more, though. I don't think anyone's heard it.
That is incredible. That is absolutely amazing. Well, look, before we finish, thanks a million to Emma and Aisling for coming in. And as I said, this is our first panel, and we're going to have every second one this year. We're going to do panels, and there's always so much for us to talk about. It's just brilliant. We're never short of material. 2 things that have caught our eye that we want to say before we go. One thing is Railway Union Rugby Club, who are really strong on equality and fighting for equal rights for female players. They have something coming up on April the 4th. It's Save the Date, and it is they want to have a record crowd for a women's rugby club game in Ireland. They're playing Suttonians on April the 8th. They have a big event. You can go in and buy tickets for it on Eventbrite. I've got one already. Even if I don't go, I bought the ticket because it's well worth supporting. So it's the hashtag for it, I think, is Change the Game. So April the 4th is this game. They're trying to get a huge crowd down to their home ground and make a record there. And there's going to be a big family day, face painting, all the rest. So that's one worth putting in your diaries. And also just to let you know that Barbie manufacturers, Mattel, are just about to produce a new range of dolls, and they're Olympic dolls. So they've improved in recent years. They have gone more multiracial. They've have dolls with disabilities and wheelchair dolls, and so now they're producing 5 new dolls, and they're special because they are for the new sports in Tokyo. Yeah. So presumably then we're going to have a doll that surfs, a doll that is what else is in it? I think surfing is one, definitely. Baseball is another one. Skateboarding is another one. So if you know anybody who's got sporty girls, and were you doll people?
No,
I have to.
Really? Not gonna lie,
never had one.
None at all.
No, I never. No Barbies or anything.
No,
my mum tried.
Yeah. Well, I confess.
Yeah,
I was the same, and I used to pull the heads off my sister's dolls. Yeah. But I always say, just because you're sporty doesn't mean your kids couldn't play with dolls. I know,
absolutely,
and I think that's the thing too. People always go, you shouldn't buy, you should only be buying footballs for your girls, but they can do both.
They can do both.
You can do whatever you want to do.
So have a look. They're not out yet, but if your children are into sport and dolls, you can buy sporty dolls. So listen, thanks a million to you two for coming in. Thanks a million. That was a great chat, and we will be back with you soon. You can find all our previous episodes on iTunes, or if you go into offtheball.com, you'll find their podcast link, and our series link for Off the Bench is in there. So until the next time, thanks for listening and enjoy your sport.